audience to speaker I have seen in a long time. But if we flip it around from speaker to audience, the ratio will change. But thank you very much for staying back, because we promise you two outstanding interlocutors in the space of your interest. And I'll start without much ado and a longish introduction to a very illustrious Swati Vasudevan from Khan Academy, because I think everyone here probably knows Khan Academy. Okay, so Swati, you're not even expected to speak. People know what this is all about. But on a lightest note, I think Swati is going to tell us how free at scale is possible, and therefore provoke the discussion, which will hopefully give you your own ideas and collaborative opportunities with the excellent work that Mr. Salman Khan is doing, not just in India, but on the planet. So Swati Vasudevan, Managing Director, Khan Academy. She'll start with a short presentation. Please feel free to take photographs. I can move out as soon as her presentation starts.
Everyone can hear me? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Rohit. And thanks for the opportunity. And thanks, first of all, for expressing an interest in the topic. Let me move out of the way. Yeah, better? Okay, perfect. So I'll quickly tell you a little bit about what Khan Academy does in India, which is a little different from what you might have heard of or know of Khan Academy in general. Okay, the clicker is not working. Otherwise, you can... Okay. Yeah, we always have technical issues, so always got to have a plan B, as I was telling Rohit. I had a plan B in place where I was going to just verbally talk through the entire presentation. But I think most of you know Khan Academy is a global not-for-profit ed-tech organization. Very few of you might know the scale of it, which is 115 million students across 190 countries use Khan Academy, and out of their own volition, because being a not-for-profit, we do not advertise ourselves or we do not promote ourselves. The interesting thing to note here is Sal is a Padma Shri recipient in India, and India is the second largest presence of Khan Academy from a user perspective. In India, it was started in 2017 when late Sri Ratan Tata approached Sal and said he wanted Khan Academy for the students of his country. That's how he gave a 5-year grant to get Khan Academy established as a not-for-profit in India and get started. When he started in India, it was essentially a self-directed platform. In other words, left up to someone to discover it on their own and use it. And we had about 4 million students that were finding Khan Academy on their own and using it. But here's what we did differently. So Khan Academy India team was not focused on these learners exclusively. In fact, we focused on underserved segment, which is government school students in the country. So we partnered with state governments, and that's how Khan Academy India's work really started. So today we are working with 4 different state governments and the central government, Government of India, and we have presence in 10 school systems, with Khan Academy being used in more than 26,000 government schools, and by about 2 million government school students. And I think that's what we feel really, really proud of. Another thing that makes Khan Academy interesting in India, which some of you may not be aware of, is Khan Academy's content is being utilized in vernacular. So it is available in 9 different locales, including English, which is a mixed locale, and the content is aligned to 6 different state curriculums, including NCERT aligned curriculum. And we focus on STEM, which is maths and science in India. So Here's what I'm going to show you is the teacher-directed side of it, which is what we focus on. So government school work is all teacher-directed and not self-directed directly to students. So it's not B2C, it's B2G2C. And this will show you how the journey has been since 2017 for the teachers who have adopted Khan Academy to teach students. Every dot here represents a teacher who's doing that. The green dot represents a government school teacher from our partner state schools. The blue dot is government school teacher that is not a part of our partner state schools, and the yellow dot is any other private school teacher. So look at how this journey has progressed. So you'll notice that Punjab fills up first, followed by UP, which is where we entered next, followed by Maharashtra, and then we saturated Odisha recently, the most recent state. And today, there are 45,000 government school teachers using Khan Academy. In one way, there's a teacher in every state in the country. We work at a very large scale because we are able to work through the governments, and I think that's the unique feature of Khan Academy as an edtech not-for-profit in the country. The states lead the program, and Khan Academy enables from behind, through providing capacity building and content localization capabilities. We leverage the local capacity of the state governments, both infrastructure, whatever devices they have available in internet access, or smartphones because it requires very little bandwidth. And we also build the capacity of the state cadres, education department cadres. And because of that, we're able to ensure sustainability because the program is not dependent on us. It is run by the government, and they have the wherewithal to be able to run it even after we leave. It is based on mastery-based localized, I think is the important piece that I want to highlight here, curriculum, which is world-class, same world-class as you all are familiar with. And it is all resting on an innovative cutting-edge platform, Khan Academy platform. Some people think of it as a website, but it's actually a platform. It's not just videos, it's exercises, unit tests, dashboards, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, the new AI tool, KhanMigo. And all of it is in service of the teachers and the students in the country. But here's the interesting thing. We thought we set out to teach math and science and measuring learning outcomes in those two languages and those two subjects. But what we are achieving is something far greater. We are improving digital literacy. We are breaking gender barriers, and we are reducing fear of math. As we all know, there is a little bit of fear of math. How many of you have come across that? Either somebody who has fear of math or you yourself have fear of math. A raise of hands really quickly. Yeah, come on, let's be more honest here. Okay, so there's this social myth, underlying myth that girls can't do math. So Khan Academy is breaking that barrier, and girls do math, and that's what I'm going to show you really quick here. Oops. It should play. Yeah. So that's it, actually. We'll stop right here and hand it back over to Rohit.
Oh, great. I think this would give you a flavor of what you already knew and reinforced it and gave you something new. So it is free and at scale, and using the leverages available in an institutional context of an emerging market like India. Now, which brings me to Pegor Papazian, my friend. I was sitting in one of these huddles in his beautiful capital city of Yerevan, and all of a sudden I find some direct messages on my LinkedIn, and in about 7 minutes he had kidnapped me and taken me to an outstanding center that he runs called TUMO, T-U-M-O, in Armenia, in Yerevan. And it was a very interesting journey for 20-30 minutes when I saw maybe 1,000 or maybe 2,000 kids in a very, very plush and nice setting, learning the whole thing about digitization in multiple layers. He'll, of course, explain it a lot better. But suffice to say, I had only one dream out of that magical 1.5 hours, ladies and gentlemen. It was, can there be TUMO in India? Can there be TUMO in a box in India, which is the hub and the spoke put together? And thereafter, I'm so privileged and happy and fascinated that in a similar talk in Banaras Hindu University 15 days back. His tireless colleague Kabir showed up all the way. Kabir is here. So he's the India man for TUMO, and you have the man himself. All yours,
Thank you. Thanks, Kabir. So maybe we can run the video as I talk over it. But yeah, TUMO is an after-school program, a very special kind of after-school program, very intense, in person. In Armenia, where the majority of our footprint is, although we're going global in multiple countries, we have 35,000 students that attend on a weekly basis, twice a week, in this location. And that seems like a tiny number, but in fact, it's a huge proportion of the population of Armenia, which is about 2.5 million, even less. And so we cover quite a bit of the country. It's free of charge. It's for teenagers. And we have about a 45% or more ratio of girls versus boys, which happens organically. We cover 14 skill areas across technology and design, often combining them. We have a special automated process to generate personal learning paths for each of those students that looks like this. We're developing a new version now. And it combines self-learning in this kind of environment with workshops. So the self-learning is supported by coaches, and the workshops are project-based group activities led by an industry professional, whether it's a coder or a graphic designer, etc. It ends up being very effective. We have very low turnover rate. We have very significant life outcomes based on an impact assessment that was done recently. And it really proves that learning when it's consensual, in other words, when kids are learning because they want to, not because they have to, can be super effective and really cashes in on the kind of the primary currency of education, which is, we think, motivation. If you have motivation, the rest works itself out. And so at TUMO, we don't have any admission requirements. It's free. There's no competition. There are no tests. There's no diploma. Instead of a diploma, there's a portfolio that kids develop. But we're really targeting these soft skills through the Trojan horse of hard skills. So although we emphasize the hard skills quite a bit, really what we want to get is self-confidence, communication skills, etc. These are some images of our international centers. We're now in multiple countries. Hoping to get to India, not there yet. And as I mentioned before, there's a diploma is a living diploma in the form of a portfolio. So you showcase your work. That's how you impress your future employer, your grandmother, the school, whatever you want to do. And it's much more effective than a piece of paper. So that's it in a nutshell. I won't go much deeper, partly because at 2 p.m. at the other conference room, the Grand Ballroom, I'll be giving a short talk about TUMO, and we'll go into more detail, in particular about our AI curriculum, which is a very fast-moving area.
Good. So, in two outstanding faculty, you guys have heard about that free at scale is being done, and it is not just possible, it is being scaled up as we speak. Can those of us who are force multipliers here in this audience and elsewhere can possibly, I think piggyback, if not piggyback, give wind to the wings of this big mission before our country. That's the moot point. So my thought process is that people here would only remember what they've spoken. So the faculty have spoken. They've given you the presentation rather than me asking them multiple questions and you just running out of time. I'm very open to somebody raising their hand and giving a comment or seeking out the faculty on something specific. Okay, Prerna, I know. Any others? Okay, good. Very good. That's it, the three of them. Would you mind clubbing the questions so that more questions can come in rather than Swati or Pegor hanging out to just one of them? Yeah, sure.
Hi. So, very big fan of Khan Academy. In general, my daughter studies Khan Academy, what you actually said now. How does it work with no devices for students in a school setting like government schools? So that's my
Could you just say that again for the benefit of the audience in brief? How does it work?
for students with no devices, and how do we track those learning outcomes individually for students
got
without devices?
So low devices.
No devices. That's for her, and I have a question for two more as well. So is it all grant-based in terms of funding? Because how do you otherwise raise funding since it is free for students?
So access to capital, access to technology.
Yes.
I'll let the mic go around. Yeah, the lady.
Hi, I'm Soumya and I work with governments actually. And I saw the implementations and I'm a huge fan of Khan Academy's work as well and what I saw of two more great stuff happening. But my question as I work with governments is how do you get that implementation successful, right? So I think it's the percolation always struggles from the idea to the ground. I just want to understand maybe through anecdotes or actual experiences on how it has played out in some of these states in terms of adoption and actual use. Yeah.
Right, so the inner being which was spoken about.
Yeah.
Excellent follow-up to this. Any other? And yes, the third, and we go back to the faculty.
Darius. Yeah. So what kind of stops the schools from adopting this, in terms of why can't the school adopt your tumor model like an after class kind of a thing?
Got it, because Darius is a very influential man, so we'll leave
Not
it
at all.
here. So Darius, Soumya, and Prerna, I think the critical thing emerging from this is how does this get bigger? How does this get scaled up to what you've already achieved, and hopefully in India, because the audience is probably India-centric.
So maybe I'll start with the money question. I think it's important to ask how you can scale something that's free of charge, but also maybe talk about the why. It seems obvious that free makes it more accessible, and it definitely does. But I think the access question goes beyond the admission into the program, but really empowering kids to access society and the opportunities that would otherwise not be accessible for them. And if you don't have a system that is free of charge, you automatically eliminate a significant number of cohort who happen to be the ones that need the access the most, right? Now, how we do it in our case is, so we started from Armenia, our biggest base is in Armenia, and in Armenia, we are self-sustaining financially, even though it's a huge operation. The way we do it is we developed the software that we briefly glimpsed, a lot of content, a whole kind of franchise package. And so whenever we open a center in Paris or Berlin or Takasaki in Japan or Los Angeles, we have a local philanthropist or CSR or whatever the case may be funding it, but we also charge them a license fee. And so it ends up being a kind of cross-subsidy from like the richer countries to poorer countries like Armenia. And that's a model that I think can be scaled globally. But in general, it speaks to creating intellectual property that can generate value. So going from being a school to being a tech startup is how we do it.
I can address the questions around the technology and the implementation bit. So the beauty of Khan Academy is that it requires very low bandwidth. And we've seen all sorts of models out there in different government schools, depending on the availability of infrastructure, which is devices, internet access, and power also, because you might have the first two but not have the third. I'll give you examples. In some cases, there are ICT labs, so they're all shared. So 10 computers for 50 students, and they take time. So they divide the students into cohorts, and the students use it, one at a time. The groups use it one at a time. In some cases, there's a smart screen. So the teacher will put it on the smart screen, play the video there, and for the exercises and practice, each student comes and uses that big screen to practice their sums or their exercises. And that's used in the residential school systems much better because they can do it after school as well. So there are two elements to it. There's a work in the classroom, there's a work outside of the classroom, which is at home. And ASR survey that just came out last week has shown that more than 60 to 70% students, both boys and girls, do have access to a smartphone at home. So we have seen a good 60% of the usage actually happens at home or after school hours. So we have seen that. So we have seen technology is not really a bottleneck per se. It makes it harder, and the engagement driving becomes harder because getting every student the dosage required takes a lot more push. So that's the first piece. Answering the question at the back on why doesn't the school just adopt it on their own or the student adopt it on their own, I think it comes down to two things. One, agency, and second is awareness. The awareness in the sense discoverability of the platform. Because we're an NGO, we may have world-class content, but in this underserved segment, the awareness is very low. Very few students and their families really know about Khan Academy. So that's part of the problem. And a second is the students don't really have agency in that space. So the 8.5 million students that you saw, most of them are chunk of them are self-directed. But in the government schools, it has to be teacher-directed. That's the only way to make it happen. And that requires a bit of a push and a pull. So push comes through our partnership with the government at the senior-most level, and the pull comes through campaigns that we drive in the schools on the ground.
Right, so you guys answered the aspects of access through technology and the finance part of it. I was still hoping to get a comment on Soumya's thing about
Why not in schools?
what is it that motivates kids to stay on and to do better? And before you do that, and there isn't enough time, we are running out of 8.5 minutes left. I was thinking if you could also talk about authority figures. How do we motivate and involve decision makers at scale, including governments, perhaps philanthropers, school principals and teachers, so that you can club her question not just around student specific, but like top down as well.
But learner first, as we like to say. Let's start with the students. We love to say that kids hate to study, but they love to learn. That's not always true, but it was true in my case. Raise your hand if that was your case. This should be what schools are like. This should be the future of education. Schools should be environments where you're not kind of attending because you have to. So we call it walk-away pedagogy. What would schools look like if kids could walk away without consequences? How would they have to change so that kids kept coming back? And that's kind of what we try to do at a small scale outside of the school area. Of course, schools have government-mandated standards that they have to follow, and that makes the idea of giving kids a lot of choice very complicated. But we do think that's where things should be going. And in terms of authorities, the relationship is always an interesting one because you are trying to introduce a disruptive element into the education system where at the same time trying to get support from the very institutions that you're trying to disrupt. Maybe, Swati, you have some insights into that as well.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And one thing I say is never try to overhaul a system overnight because you can't do that. So you have to be very practical and you have to work around it by integrating whatever you're trying to bring in into the existing system. And that's exactly the strategy we've taken in India. So Khan Academy is not a replacement content or curriculum. Even though it's full curriculum for every grade aligned to the textbook chapter by chapter, it is still not a replacement because the teacher is used to teaching using that textbook and a blackboard. So we let them do that and then use Khan Academy as a supplementary platform. And the state executives or the education department government officials are okay with that. They are much more okay with that than to try and replace everything. So system strengthening is very important. Back to what Rohit was asking, we do capacity building and training for all the cadres, all the way from the nodal officers to state resource groups to academic resource groups, DEOs, all the different cadres in the education department in every state. We train all of them, including principals and the teachers, on how to use EdTech. That's how digital literacy gets brought in as well. So that's kind of how we take a full 360-degree surround sound approach to tackle this problem, which is a much larger one to tackle.
As much an opportunity, I suppose, to differentiate yourself once you come to terms with that institutional structure and governance at that. How do you address parents? Maybe the last question before We did do one quick rapid fire round of questions. Prerna, second question, I'll have to wait for you to. Any other questions for our faculty? Do I see a hand here? Any other hands? Okay, so the gentleman here, and then beginning with her and ending with her. I'm hopefully not being very partial to my old colleague.
The question is pretty much about curriculum across different geographic locations. Each of the curriculums are different in different countries and different focus culturally, and as well as like what parents care about. How do you unify the curriculum across different geographies?
Thanks. Sorry, I may be asking a little controversial question here, but given that this is all available for free and at scale, what is the role of other edtech companies that are, potentially charging for similar curriculum with other schools and ecosystem? Yeah.
Good.
Okay, so I'll take the first question, which I think was, how do you deal with the fact that education standards might be different from country to country? In our case, it's really simple. We've concentrated mostly on the part of learning which is not covered by most curricula. So AI, but also robotics, which maybe will be increasingly covered to some extent, but then graphic design, filmmaking, music composition, motion graphics, game development, things like that. But more importantly, what we're focusing on, yes, those hard skills are very important, but what we're focusing on is the ability to work in groups, as I said before, self-confidence, adaptability, and especially now with AI, it becomes even more important to have these very adaptable, resilient kind of kids who can be very competitive. And what we like to say is that AI will not steal your job. Some Armenian teenager who's a super user of AI will steal your job, and that's what we're aiming for, and that's universal across the world.
So what happens to the for-profit organizations? I think that's an excellent and $1 million question. I'll say that, we're, as a country, at a macro level, we're trying to deliver on the demographic dividend. And to do that, we have to have our youth be skilled, which take it upstream, they have to have access to quality education, which means we're talking about 260 million students in the country. To work at that scale, no one single organization can make it happen. Even though Khan Academy is working at a very large scale, and yes, to make it truly available at that scale, quality, access to education, it has to be tech-enabled, it has to be free, it has to be in their local language or vernacular. All that is true, but still, I feel the ecosystem is so large. The space to be where we want to make a dent is so large that you need all of the above. So I think there's a place for-profits and there's a place for not-for-profits as well.
Right, so we started with a lot fewer of us in the room, and there's more, so probably the word has gone around. Okay, any last remarks before we let the speakers give the punchline, which essentially is out there, that free at scale at world-class levels is indeed possible. There are some examples that you've seen. You can always nitpick and say, but what about this and what about that? Any other remarks from the audience? Yes, madam, certainly you'll have the last word.
I'd like to hear from both of you. What is the ultimate vision? What's the end game that you're looking for?
That was supposed to be my question. All right, we'll end with that. Thank you.
Maybe I'll go first. Here's how I envision education in this futuristic technology-oriented world or tech-enabled world. Through an AI education tool that is thoughtfully designed, responsibly tested to ensure safety, security, and data privacy for students, anyone, regardless of their age, their socioeconomic background, can access quality education at their own pace, in a safe environment without being judged, anytime, anywhere, in a way that they are being also handheld, and being pushed to think critically as well as problem solve. To me, that's the vision I have, where the humans also have a very strong role to play of being that mentor and motivator, and one that inspires the students, a personalized coach to the students, and enables the interpersonal interaction and interaction with the communities for the students, because that's where they learn how to navigate human organizations and dynamics and interpersonal skills. So to me, that's the vision.
I think that sums it up very well. But
I think, Pegor, your vision should be to get all of us to Armenia.
yes, but maybe two words: learning efficiency. Learning in schools is super inefficient. It's not fair to kids. It's almost a learner's rights issue. Part of what we're trying to do is make sure that kids learn a lot more with a much shorter time, to put it in a very simplistic way.
Thank you. So this leaves us with a round of acclamation for our distinguished faculty. Thank you so much for joining, and those of you who joined late, you only missed two outstanding introductory films. Hopefully you can catch our faculty